What happens when a floating airbase with 5,000 sailors, advanced fighter jets, and cruise missiles enters waters where 20% of the world's oil passes daily? That's not the route, that's a message. When the USS Abraham Lincoln, carrying more than 60 fighter jets, moves into one of the world's most volatile choke points, markets react, militaries reposition, and rivals pay attention. The question is, what happens next? The USS Abraham Lincoln is one of the US Navy's 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers and part of the Nimitz class. Commissioned in 1989, it has served for more than 3 decades and remains one of the most powerful mobile military platforms on Earth. It weighs about 100,000 tons and stretches 1,092 feet long, longer than 3 football fields. The ship runs on 2 nuclear reactors, allowing it to operate for over 20 years without refueling. That means it can stay at sea for months, limited mostly by food supplies rather than fuel. On board, around 5,000 sailors and aircrew live and work. The carrier typically deploys with 60 to 75 aircraft, including FA-18 Super Hornets, EA-18G Growlers for electronic warfare, and E-2D Hawkeye early warning planes. Together, this air wing can conduct airstrikes, surveillance, electronic attacks, and air defense all from international waters. But the carrier never sails alone. It leads a carrier strike group, usually including guided missile destroyers, a cruiser, and often a fast attack submarine. Escort ships carry Tomahawk cruise missiles with ranges of about 1,600 kilometers, giving the group deep strike capability. In simple terms, USS Abraham Lincoln is a floating airbase, missile platform, and command center combined, a moving piece of American power projection. The Persian Gulf looks small on the map, but in reality, it is one of the most important waterways on Earth. At its narrowest point, the Strait of Hormuz is just about 21 miles wide. Through that tight corridor, roughly 20% of the world's daily oil supply moves every single day. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, around 17 to 20 million barrels of oil per day pass through the strait. That is 1 out of every 5 barrels consumed globally. On top of that, about 20 to 25% of global liquefied natural gas exports also move through this route, mainly from Qatar. Now think about what that means. If shipping is disrupted even for a few days, oil prices can spike instantly. That impacts fuel prices in the US, Europe, and Asia almost immediately. The Gulf is surrounded by some of the most strategically important countries in the world: Iran to the north, and Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and Iraq to the south and west. This region holds nearly half of the world's proven oil reserves. It is also packed with US military bases and major naval assets. That is why even small incidents here can have global consequences. When the US Navy rushes USS Abraham Lincoln into the Persian Gulf, it usually follows hard intelligence, not headlines. One major trigger is a direct threat to US forces or allies. The US has around 40,000 to 50,000 troops stationed across the Middle East, including bases in Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and the UAE. If intelligence shows missile buildup, drone activity, or proxy mobilization targeting these forces, the response can be immediate. Iran's missile arsenal is a key factor. The US Defense Department estimates Iran has 3,000+ ballistic missiles, the largest stockpile in the region. Some anti-ship missiles, like variants of the Khalij-Fars, are designed specifically to target naval vessels in the Gulf. If satellite imagery or intercepted communications suggest launch preparations, a carrier strike group becomes both shield and sword. Another major trigger is disruption to maritime shipping. The Strait of Hormuz is widely recognized by the US Energy Information Administration as the world's most important oil transit choke point. Because there are limited alternative export routes for many of these producers, even short-term disruptions can significantly affect global energy markets. In 2019, tanker attacks and the downing of a US surveillance drone led to rapid US deployments. More recently, attacks on commercial vessels linked to regional tensions have again raised the risk level. Sometimes it's about deterrence. Moving a 100,000-ton carrier sends a clear message. Escalation will be met with overwhelming force. In other words, it's often about preventing a war, not starting one. First, air power shifts overnight. A Nimitz-class carrier can launch 60 to 75 aircraft, including FA-18 Super Hornets, that can strike targets more than 700 kilometers away without refueling. With aerial refueling, that range stretches even further. Within hours, the carrier air wing can establish 24/7 combat air patrols over critical waterways like the Strait of Hormuz. That means constant surveillance, rapid interception capability, and immediate strike options if needed. Second, missile defense coverage expands. The carrier doesn't arrive alone. Its strike group typically includes Arleigh Burke-class destroyers equipped with the Aegis combat system. These ships can track and intercept ballistic missiles using SM-3 and SM-6 interceptors. In a region where Iran fields anti-ship ballistic missiles with ranges exceeding 1,000 kilometers, that defensive shield matters. It reassures Gulf allies like Saudi Arabia and the UAE that Washington is actively committed. Below the surface, there's also usually a fast attack submarine operating quietly. While its presence is rarely public, it adds a powerful deterrent layer. A single US submarine can carry dozens of Tomahawk cruise missiles with a range of about 1,600 kilometers. Politically, the impact is immediate. Regional partners gain confidence, while adversaries must reconsider aggressive moves. Naval exercises pause. Missile units go on alert. Diplomacy suddenly carries more weight because it's backed by visible force. The Persian Gulf is one of the most dangerous places for a carrier to operate. At its narrowest point, the Strait of Hormuz is just 21 miles wide, giving limited maneuvering space. Iran has invested heavily in anti-ship weapons, including variants of the Fateh 110 ballistic missile with ranges over 300 kilometers. It also operates hundreds of fast attack craft and naval mines. One miscalculation here could escalate fast. As a result, the economic consequences would ripple worldwide. When a US carrier like USS Abraham Lincoln enters the Gulf during tension, oil markets react fast. In recent Middle East flare-ups, Brent crude has jumped $5 to $10 per barrel within days, sometimes even within a few hours. Shipping insurance premiums for tankers can double almost overnight. Even small disruptions raise fuel prices globally, hitting countries that rely on imports the hardest. A single carrier strike group can reshape an entire region's military balance overnight. In the Persian Gulf, where missiles, oil routes, and rival powers collide, even one wrong move can change everything. So here's the real question. Is this calculated deterrence or a gamble in one of the world's most volatile choke points? Share your take in the comments. And if you want more such data-backed geopolitical analysis, hit subscribe and stay ahead of the headlines.